I would say if you are ready for change, then we are the community that has your back. We understand what people are facing in the insurance conversation. Our mission statement is to take "it's not covered by my health insurance" out of our healthcare conversation. And when we do that, we know that we're going to save lives and we're going to empower people. But Einstein said it best when he said, "Insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results." If you're ready for something new and innovative, then join us.
The Vidal Speaks podcast.
Episode 48, Kari Gray with GreenSurance, the health insurance alternative that is more than just sick insurance. Welcome to Vidal Speaks. My name is Deborah Vidal, former 11-year LPGA golf pro turned classical homeopath, certified plant-based nutritionist, and wellness coach. Each week here on Vidal Speaks, we bring you knowledge, inspiration, or natural remedies to help you take charge of your health and feel your best. I believe health is freedom and knowledge is power, so tuning in each week will give you the power to take steps towards freeing yourself from the chains that hold you back from having the energy to do all you want in life. No matter where you are in your journey of wellness, Vidal Speaks can help. I promise. Hello, Vidal Speaks community. I'm so happy we get to spend some time together today because today's show may interest each and every one of you. And like always, I want you to feel part of this movement to help others learn the truth about how to really cure disease and live a long, healthy life. Using natural medicine or methods is key to restoring real health. And the word needs to get out because people can heal and they need to know what to say yes to and what to say no to. But even more than that, what options they have once they get sick. So if you have any friend or family members that's fighting cancer, autoimmune diseases, or having issues like migraines, joint pain, skin trouble, sleep issues, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and all those other lifestyle diseases, then the best thing you can do is pass on the link of this show and let them hear some of the episodes so they too can see that there's so many healthy choices that actually can cure them and not just suppress the symptoms and make them sicker on a deeper level. Oh, speaking of sick, the insurance we have offered to us today is called health insurance, but in no way is it health insurance because we're not allowed to do anything healthy or anything to prevent disease or any natural treatment for an already diagnosed problem. Our current insurance plans should just be called sick insurance because we pay every month for insurance that we can only use once we're really sick. They then will be happy to pay for all your pharmaceuticals that will keep you sick and keep them rich. But heaven forbid if you get sick or diagnosed and you want to do homeopathy or some alternative cancer treatment like the Gerson therapy that are proven to be cures. No, that's not covered because then you'll get well and they'll lose your business because pharmaceuticals are like an annuity for big pharma. They're forever. They have no incentive to get you well. Isn't that sad? You mean much more to them sick than well. Always remember this when your doctor's pushing you to take a vaccine or into a treatment that your heart's telling you this doesn't feel right. I know some people want to do the treatments that their doctors recommend, but there's a way bigger percentage of people who are feared into the treatments or pressured by their doctors that have become outright aggressive when patients say, "No, I don't want to do that." So between just not knowing other options and being feared into treatments, that's the majority of people. I only want to educate you so that you can make a decision that feels right for you in your heart and makes sense and is logical. And if you choose the traditional treatment after you've learned all your options, including the natural ones, and you've learned about the dangers of suppression of your symptoms, then we should all support your choice. No one should judge the other, But one thing is for sure, we all have to live with our choices, whether we live or die from them. So being educated is extremely important. Today's show is really exciting for me personally because for many years I've been looking for real health insurance, meaning one I could actually use healthy or natural treatments when I would get sick. And I finally found one. Wow, this is so cool. It's going to be the way of the future, I think, guys, with insurance rates going sky high. And look, I don't blame Obamacare. I blame our sick people that need so many treatments. How can we have affordable insurance when the treatment of one surgery as an outpatient is billed at $150,000 really? And when 80% of the population is obese or have lifestyle diseases like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, and even when our children are having type 2 diabetes, which is a disease only seen after the age of 60, just 25 years ago, that means we have a problem. We have to quit blaming our insurance and fix our people, change our diet, which will heal us and the sick planet. And then we'd see insurance not even needed for 90% of the claims people are using it for. So I want to focus on getting people well, not fighting over sick insurance rates. That's working on the wrong issue, in my opinion. And although the climbing rates are making it difficult, we should fix it by getting healthy first. Finally, after today, we'll have another option, true health insurance, meaning one that will pay for me to do natural methods for my sickness or injury if I want to. It pays for what I want to do. Because if you're like me, you're paying out of your nose for your health insurance and you'll never use it. Because either you have to pay the first $7,000 or that huge out-of-pocket expense before it kicks in to help you. And healthy people don't need $7,000 worth of visits, so you never reach your out-of-pocket. Or you need a treatment, but you don't want the one that they want you to do. You want to do something natural. For example, if I got cancer, I'd want to do the Gerson therapy, but my insurance will only pay for me to do chemo, which I won't do. So every year I find myself saying, why do I have insurance? And why am I paying so much every month for something that I can't use? And the answer is always the same. Oh, it's in case of a horrible accident. But that's a huge amount of money to pay for accident insurance when you can't even use it for any health issues. Now, welcome GreenSurance and Kari Gray. You're going to hear her story and how and why she found a way to make us all have an option for true health insurance. And one of the most important reasons to have another option is because our new president is planning on destroying Obamacare. If that happens, then we all may want to opt out of what they will have to offer and join this community plan called GreenSurance because it makes so much more sense. Yet it covers both natural and traditional treatments. So if you're listening and you're not living in America, try to start something like this in your country because I really feel like it's the wave of the future, at least in health insurance here. Okay, I'm going to let Kari tell you all about it, but first let me tell you a little bit about her. Kari Gray is founder and CEO of GreenSurance, a health insurance alternative changing healthcare in the U.S. By putting health into healthcare, GreenSurance combines conventional medicine and over 40 alternative options together with Obamacare penalty protection to do what insurance does without the high price. As a terminal liver cancer survivor, Kari's life includes how nearly 3 decades ago, alternative medicine saved her life. Diagnosed and left with no medical hope, Kari also saw how insurance denies natural modalities that in time saved her life. As a former insurance professional, Kari leads GreenSurance as a 25-year business professional whose passion to pay it forward is what GreenSurance is doing for thousands throughout the U.S. Are you looking for an alternative to the high cost of healthcare insurance? Do you want the protection from Obamacare ACA penalties? Are you looking for natural treatments included in your healthcare? Do you love holistic medicine? And are you tired of paying all the cost alone? Is natural medicine your go-to first choice for health care? And are you tired of health insurance denying alternative treatments? Well, if your answer is yes, then this interview is a must listen because GreenSurance has great news for you. GreenSurance is a member community that is here to serve people looking for better than health insurance solutions. I'm so excited, you guys, for you to hear this show. I'm stomping at the bit, as they say. So let's get right on it and go meet Kari Gray. You probably need to listen to this one at least a few times. Take notes, but you can also use the show notes to help you, as you know. Okay, put on your concentration ears for this one, guys. It has a lot of details. Here we go. Welcome to the Vidal Speaks podcast, Kari. I'm so excited to have you share your fantastic insurance plan with all my listeners. So thank you for agreeing to be on the show and taking all this time to tell us about it.
Oh, thank you for having me. What an honor it is to be here and to really be part of the education that I know your listeners are going to be excited to hear about.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to asking you a ton of questions. And as my listeners know, if you answer all my questions, then I think you've answered pretty much all of them. But before we get started, you have two reasons to be a great guest on our show because you yourself had terminal cancer and cured yourself with alternative methods. So if you could start by just telling us briefly of your story. And I also personally would like to know what you did to cure your cancer, but I'm sure that story is the reason why you're on this path to creating an insurance plan that includes alternative medicine, right?
That's right. So my story starts when I was 25 years old. I went in for a physical, came away with a double whammy diagnosis. The first was I had MS, and the second diagnosis was terminal liver cancer. And I would just say it was at that time, it was that shift in being told that there was no hope and to get my affairs together that, was very, very debilitating. I don't know very many 25-year-olds that are ready for that kind of news, especially when you're a mom with 3 little children and you know that your children need you.
Yeah.
So basically what happened was I spent a few days, needless to say, very depressed, very debilitated. I went in, a vivacious woman full of life and came away completely incapacitated. That was kind of like the beginning of the beginning for me because it was when I prayed for wisdom that I got a series of epiphanies that came to me. And the first was that I needed to stop getting more bad news. I needed to find someone that could help me. And at the time, I knew nothing about alternative medicine. So I just started asking people. This was years before the internet. And anyways, one conversation led to another with many different people. And eventually, I found an alternative practitioner who operated out of her home office in a place called Bentonville, Arkansas. You would never even know this woman, did what she did, but she was very much under the radar, as we know that alternative medicine practitioners have had to be for many, many years.
Yes.
So she, without the diagnosis, awareness of what I already knew, again, she confirmed that I had the terminal liver cancer. What I told her that I already knew, because she didn't want to break the bad news to me, but I told her I already knew. She asked me what they told me, and I said, well, they told me that I have no chance of surviving. And she said, do you believe that? Well, I said, I don't want to believe it. And she said, well, I believe because you're young, you stand a chance. She said, but I also believe that you're going to have to make huge changes in your life. And she said that you have health insurance, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, it's not going to pay for anything that I'm going to have you do. And if you're willing to accept those terms, I'll help you. And I said, okay. So at the time I ran a business, it was a, small, successful little small business, nothing on a major scale. But anyways, it gave me the financial wherewithal to be able to absorb health insurance premiums and thousands of dollars out of pocket for an alternative protocol. You asked me what it was. Well, it was lots of cleanses and detoxes. She had me first start with reading the book, The Yeast Connection, so I could understand how bad medicine had actually set me up for cancer, and supplementation, hundreds of herbs a day, actually, and thousands a week. But anyways, this went on for a bigger part of a year. The real shift happened when the following events kind of unraveled. So I went back to my conventional doctor to get some more blood work to see if I was making any progress. Because at this point, I really didn't even know that anything had transpired. And my doctor was shocked I was alive. Now, I was shocked when I told her what I'd been doing, and she was affirmatively did not want me to talk about it to her.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So she said, we're going to run new tests, and you need to be realistic. You need to get your affairs together. And I was like, okay, well, here we go again. So, it was a few more days of a lot of anxiety till my blood work came back. But here's what really happened that blew my mind, okay? Because, the Hippocratic Oath is to do no harm. So it's almost like the hypocritical oath, but...
Really?
So she comes in, she has my file, and she doesn't want to speak to me. So I sit there kind of awkwardly, and I wait for her to say something, and she doesn't. So in my nervousness, I start talking about what I'd been doing. She again stops me and says, I don't want to hear about this.
That's crazy. You would think that they're so curious what a person has done that they sent home to die and is now sitting in their office a year later. You'd think they'd want to know.
You would think, wouldn't you? Well, this is what happened. So finally, we sit there with more awkwardness. And so finally she just sighs and says, look, I don't want to know what you've been doing, but I'm going to tell you this much. I saw your original test results, and I'm looking at these. And I'm here to tell you that the liver does not do this by itself. Congratulations, you're cancer-free.
Wow.
And as she hurriedly tried to get away from me out of that room, I stopped her. I said, hold on. What did you just say? And she said, yeah, you're cancer-free. I said, so like I'm a miracle? And she's like, yeah, I guess so. And I said, but you don't want to know what I've been doing? And she goes, no, I absolutely do not want to know. And she left. And I sat there with blown away. I was just like, I can't even believe what I just saw and felt. And so that was the first awakening that I had. Then it was compounded by submitting all the receipts, tens of thousands of dollars in receipts that I had been doing for all the things that I had to change. I mean, it was everything from the chemicals in my swimming pool, because we had chlorinated pools, so that had to change, to my cookware. I had to get rid of, all my nasty Teflon and aluminum cookware. I mean, there were so many layers besides just everything from the physical, nutritional standpoint, diet, stress reduction, the way I discipline my kids. I mean, there were so many layers that she helped me with, as well as emotional clearing.
Well, I was just going to say the emotional part is always a big part of healing cancer too, right?
Right. Well, so those are the things that kind of were thousands of dollars that I assembled I assembled all my receipts, and I thought, well, I'm sure they're not going to pay for some of this, but surely they'll pay for a few things here because, if this is a fraction of what chemo and radiation would have cost. So I just didn't quite understand what was going to happen. Anyways, I already knew not to expect anything, but I thought, well, surely, she's wrong about something here. Anyways, bottom line is I got within about 2 weeks, I got a letter back thanking me for my receipts, but affirmatively telling me that my claim is being denied because it is out of coverage and it is unproven what I had been using, which I found quite ironic considering that, cancer was now in remission. And,
right.
Yeah. So that seemed to be a bit of a bizarre answer. And, as a business person, when I looked at that, and I was very puzzled because I thought, corpses don't pay premiums. So I don't understand why you don't try to keep people alive.
Yeah.
Well, at those realities of awareness kind of put me on this path that has really changed my life. When you get a second chance at life, it definitely changes a person. And most people, I think it changes them for the better.
Yeah, I agree with that. So how many years later or months was it until you started to create this plan of yours that you call GreenSurance?
Well, that's a great question. And, the thing is that when I got the denial letter from the insurance company, my gut feeling at that point was this needs to change. But I had no idea that I was going to pay someone. And, at the time, my focus was on cancer. And so I didn't even know where to start. Well, for over 20 years, I searched for what I thought was the simple answer because my first assessment was, well, I'll just find alternative medicine health insurance. That's the answer because now I'll never, have to go through that again. And that's where another rabbit hole opened up and I just continued down, which was the fact that no matter the company I talked to, no matter the years that went by, always the conversation ended the same, which is, wow, sounds like a great idea. No company I know offers that. If you ever find it, let me know because I'd like it for myself. That was
Right.
Yeah. So about 3.5 years ago, I had a life change, I'll say, and I went into insurance, of all things. But it was when I went into insurance is when I realized understanding how the complexity of insurance works, the dynamics of what's involved, how premiums are defined and rates and, what they call actuarial, how those numbers are created, et cetera, and so forth. And when I did is when I started realizing that the very thing I had spent decades searching for could have already been done long ago. And it really was very sad when I realized how many people have probably died needlessly because they didn't have a health program that supported the right kind of medicine. And so I vowed at that point that I was going to do something about this. Now, insurance is called a needs-based industry. And what that means is that when you define an unmet need, then you create a product or a policy to meet that need. So originally when I launched GreenSurance, I launched it with the idea of just seeing how many people were ready for alternative medicine health insurance. Well, the website did a great job of defining that there was a huge unmet need. And that was great news. However, the problem was when I would talk to insurance executives, the chain of command, the doorkeepers, it's ridiculous how many doorkeepers are on insurance. And so the response was always what I call crickets. It's just, you got no answer. It was just kind of like, sitting there in silence, just listening to the crickets. So then Obamacare came out. And that really gave me like a fresh perspective because I could see where this was heading and I could see that it was going to create a huge problem. So what I also realized is that perhaps the problem could be the solution. So I started studying the law. And when I read the law, what I found was there were exemptions built into the law, kind of like a back door. And that's when I realized that GreenSurance isn't really about an insurance product. It's really about a movement. Using the exemption certification, what we've been able to do since is to build a nonprofit relationship or build a nonprofit community that has a relationship with multiple nonprofits who together are really not insurance, but an alternative to health insurance. So think about it like this. You know that there's a bank and there's a credit union. Now, you can get loans, you can have checking accounts, savings accounts. You can do the same things in both kinds of entities. However, one is member-owned, the other is corporate-owned. This is the difference between what GreenSurance is using as a member-owned community of a health program alternative compared to health insurance that it would be like a bank and it would be largely corporate-owned.
So is that considered a co-op?
Basically, it would be. It's called a ministry exemption in Obamacare. And ministry means organization. Now, most of the ministry exemptions in existence are religious, but not all. And so that's what we have used as the ones that you don't have to be a part of a church or provide any kind of religious affiliation. But the idea is that you can be part of a community who is self-funding, and some would call it like self-insuring healthcare costs outside of the auspices of a health insurance company. And that's how we're doing what has never been done before.
Wow, that's very interesting. Okay, I have a bunch of questions, but I want to first say this, that the only time I've ever used my insurance, I have health insurance, and I've only used it probably in the last 25 years 3 times, and they were when I had an emergency situation, like when I was hit by a car as a pedestrian and I needed a knee surgery and then a minor back surgery, or like if I had an emergency pneumonia, I had to go. That's it, because I'm a person that doesn't use regular medicine because I know that they're going to prescribe me drugs and therapies that I don't believe in, and they won't pay for any of the things that will keep me healthy, so I never use it. And that's why I have an HSA, because that at least helps me write off some of what I spend on my alternative treatments. And I think there's a lot of people like me. So your company now offers a very good solution for people like me, right?
Right, that's right. So basically, yes, an HSA, for people who don't understand them, they are an amazing financial tool to leverage what the IRS provisions, and it came about from what they call a high deductible health plan. And basically what that meant is when the shift in insurance went from small deductibles to large, the IRS created a financial option so that those who are enrolled in those could use at least tax-free money to offset. So basically, whatever your tax rate is, it's tax before tax. But what's even better about it is that 100% of the money that you put in up to the legal limit is a tax write-off.
Yes.
So whether you use them or not, you get the tax deduction. But it's your money, and it's basically like an IRA for healthcare costs. The one thing that I will just say that you have to be careful with when it comes to natural medicine, because I've done a lot of research into this, if it's doctor-directed, if it's practitioner-directed, if it's ever challenged by the IRS, it won't be challenged. They will leave that alone. But when you're self-directing, you have to be very careful because people will try to use it for things like gym membership or something like that, and the IRS will not allow it. Mm-hmm. So there is some information actually on our website. If you don't mind, I'll give that information, mygreensurance.com or .org. And you can look under the Home tab, I believe, and it'll drop down and it'll give you some information on the HSA, just so that you understand how to use the advantages without having a problem with those as well.
Now, is it helpful to keep the HSA when you have GreenSurance in addition to it, I should say?
That's a great question. So here's the answer. Currently, the health program that we're using, the Health Co-op Community, that is our third-party health administrator, the health program they have does not qualify because the out-of-pocket is so small. Now, we have some people who have said, it's my money and my HSA and I'm going to use it anyways, and that's entirely a personal prerogative. One of the things that we want to do with GreenSurance, we are going to roll out in the future months, I'm hoping, is a program we call Alternacare. Now, Alternacare's out-of-pocket will qualify because it will meet the minimum out-of-pocket for an HSA. So at this point right now, it's kind of like, it's entirely up to an individual if you want to use it, but the health program does not qualify if it was ever challenged because the out-of-pocket is $500 per person times 3 with a cap of 3. The minimum for an HSA on a single is, I believe, $1,250, and on a family, I think it's $2,400. I could be wrong on those numbers, but the bottom line is we want to make sure that when we launch our own health program, that we make sure that it does seamlessly integrate with an HSA.
Right. So at this point, you're saying it kind of doesn't integrate with your HSA, but I could use my HSA to go do things. But if I had GreenSurance, then I wouldn't really need to use my HSA. Am I understanding it correctly?
Yeah. Okay. So let me just kind of give you a couple of scenarios. Okay. So if you're a single individual and you're enrolled in the health program, the out-of-pocket is $500. Okay. Now, the HSA requirement is $1,250. So some of our members have said, this is my money. I put this in my HSA. I'm going to use it for my $500. That's entirely up to them. And if the IRS ever challenges it, well, that's a chance they take. Will the IRS challenge it? I have absolutely no idea.
I see.
What I'm saying is that here's the thing that you can use your HSA for. So let's say that you don't use it for your 500, or you do. That's irrelevant. But the point is that there are things that the co-op doesn't provide for. And so that's when you use your HSA for those things.
That's good.
And what I mean by that is the following. If you have maintenance, okay, like for instance, people say, well, I like to go get a massage every month and they want to do like prevention kind of things, right? They go to the chiropractor and whatnot. Okay, so the co-op isn't really there. The health program isn't really there for maintenance and prevention. What it's really there for is when the big things happen, like the things that you mentioned. Somebody gets hurt. Somebody has, like in my situation, they have a major crisis happen. Okay, that's when really the importance of a health program that supports your choice is when it's really most important. But when it's, just kind of the things that you want to do, that's why I'm encouraging all of your listeners to go to the page because it's a quotation directly from the IRS, and you can actually go to that IRS website. It's linked web page that's talking about this very thing. But anyway, so like I say, that's just really where it's at. That's what the HSA could be used for. But again, like I say, our health program is not HSA qualified if it's ever challenged. So if a person takes a chance, it's entirely up to them.
But you're just talking about that $500 portion, but the people can use their funds in their HSA to do things, maintenance things, you're saying, like if they want to get a massage every month or colonics or go to a homeopath like myself. I had a lot of patients that would use their HSA money to pay for their visits. So it's these kind of things when you're not acutely sick that you would use your HSA for. Is that correct?
Well, yes, and let me just clarify, just so that we don't mislead anybody here. What I'm saying is that when you're enrolled in our health program, it's not integrated with the HSA because the out-of-pocket is too small, okay?
Yeah.
But many of our members are using it anyways and are taking a chance because, now let me explain something else that is pending right now. Before Congress, there is and actually you can go to congress.gov, and I actually have an alert set up. You can sign up for one yourself if you want. There is a ratification to the tax code that is before Congress. It's got bipartisan support, and I think there's around 140 senators that have approved of this. And what it would do is anyone involved in a cost-sharing organization, it would exempt them from the minimum out-of-pocket for the HSA. So in other words, if Congress ratifies the tax code, there will be no minimum out-of-pocket. So again, all of these things are changing, but when, we don't know. I mean, obviously, we've just had a big upheaval when it comes to the entire political arena right now. So where or when this happens, I don't know, but I do have the alert set so that I will be able to keep our members notified when that is ratified.
That's great. So when I had to pick my insurance plan, I really had to learn all the details about it because I wanted to make sure I got the right plan. And I feel like I'm a person that really understands how regular insurance works. So I have lots of questions for you because I want to be able to compare GreenSurance to like the traditional plans. So I hope you don't mind if I ask you a lot of questions about details.
Absolutely not. Please do.
Okay. So I think this plan is probably only for America, but my first easy question is it in any other country or is it just America?
That's a great question. And the answer is that any American outside of the country can use it.
Okay.
So in other words, I travel internationally. And so you still have the program benefits. And one of the things that's included in the list of benefits that are on the health program page is medical tourism. Well, you have to understand there's two issues here. One is that there are FDA limits a lot of the things practitioners in this country can do. So there are things that people can go to other countries and have that are not accessible to Americans in this country. What that basically then means is that the co-op, if there is a financial savings to the co-op, they by all means would back that.
I see. So, for example, you probably know of the Gerson therapy, right? It's a therapy that's done in Mexico.
Absolutely.
Now, that's done in Mexico because we don't allow that kind of therapy here in the States. So if a person got diagnosed with cancer and they want to do Gerson therapy, would that get approved, do you think, by GreenSurance?
Well, okay. So let me explain how this works. You don't buy car insurance after an accident, right?
Right.
So you can't have the benefits of the co-op if you already have cancer and you come on board. So in other words, the costs for the members would be so high if the only people that were accepted or if the people that were accepted already had a disease.
Of course.
So in order to keep the cost low, basically there's two things that happens. If a person has cancer, let's just say, for example, the way the co-op treats what's called pre-existing is anything that has happened and been treated, and I don't mean acute, like a one-time situation, like a broken leg, but I'm talking about chronic. Anything that has been diagnosed in the last 24 months is considered pre-existing. Now, what the co-op does is they look at this on a case-by-case basis. So we don't really get blanket answers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are many factors that make up chronic situations. So
for
it could
sure.
be multiple issues. And so the co-op has to look at this from a risk factor. So in other words, they're not going to approve one person at the cost of many people, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If a person comes in and let's say that they've been very healthy, but the only thing they have is cancer, which obviously is serious, what the co-op may do, is that they will give a 13-month exemption So for the first 13 months, a person cannot file any healthcare cost claims for that issue. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But at month 13, they would get the first $25,000 in health program benefits. At month 25, they would get $50,000, and at month 37, there is no pre-existing.
I see.
It's all one. Yeah.
Well,
and
that's fair.
Yeah, and the reason is so that it gives every individual the financial responsibility of paying in before you draw from. So the co-op cannot stay financially solvent if people come in making big claims and they haven't paid in.
Right.
That's just how.
And for the person who joins who has no chronic disease and no cancer or no anything, do they get immediate benefits?
Absolutely. The health program is $1 million day one.
Okay, so hang on, because I'm going to get there. That was my next question. There's such a thing, I don't know what the exact insurance term is, but is it like a cap or a limit that you get paid when you get sick, right?
Well,
so you're saying that GreenSurance cap is $1 million?
So GreenSurance currently right now, we do not have our own health program. We have an alliance of co-ops. One of the co-ops is actually our third-party health program administration. And what they offer our members is a $1 million per incident health care benefit. You can have multiple claims, things that can happen, and you would have $1 million per each.
Okay, so per each claim, it's $1 million.
Up to $1 million, yes.
So if I got in a car accident and I needed some drastic surgeries, that incident would be $1 million. If 6 months later I got cancer, that treatment would be $1 million.
Right. Now, let me quantify something because this is where a lot of people, I always like to make sure they understand this. The one thing that you have to understand is the co-op backs people when there is no insurance that is present. So let's just say an example that a person is in a car accident, okay? Well, generally there's either a liable party or there is a medical benefit rider to the policy. So that would take what's called first position. So once that's exhausted, then the co-op backs the person if they still have ongoing treatment needs.
Okay. So if it were an accident, it comes under the liability of the auto policy first. But if it were cancer or something not accident related, then it would be $1 million per incident.
That's right.
Okay.
And this, I was just going to say, and this is why we call it unlimited natural medicine, because when we're in the natural medicine arena for things like disease, basically what we're saying is that people are going to get well long before they exhaust that $1 million.
Right, because it's alternative medicine.
Right.
Exactly. Right. So say in a case like my situation where I'm healthy, I have no chronic disease. Let's say I was unfortunately diagnosed with cancer and I choose to go to the Gerson therapy or one of the Gerson therapy like places in Mexico, that would be covered for me because I am not pre-existing.
That's exactly right.
That's so fantastic. Another important point when you're picking insurance, or at least when I was going through it, is there's this maximum out-of-pocket amount, right? And so, for example, in my plan, I have to basically pay the first $6,850, and only after that does my insurance cover 100%. So for me, that's as good as nothing because I rarely go to the doctor. So at the end of the year, well, I should say on January 1, let's say I spent, $2,000. Well, it goes and starts over again. So now I'm back having to spend $6,850 the next January 1st. So I never get any help with my insurance because I never spend more than that unless it's, God forbid, an emergency. So to me, a maximum out of pocket, when it's big like that, it's not helpful for someone who wants to do alternative methods. So is there a maximum out of pocket for GreenSurance?
Yes. So for our co-op members, it's $500 per person up to a cap of 3 people. So if a family of 4 would pay $1,500 and a family of 10 would pay $1,500, or an individual would pay $500. So it's 500 single, 1,000 couple, 1,500 family. That's the maximum out of pocket. That's called the annual.
So you just pay that once you've paid that 500, then is there a ratio of what's paid on your, procedure?
That's a great question. So let's clarify this. So let's say in your case, you're a single individual. The first $500 of healthcare costs you pay, you would submit that The co-op verifies your receipts. Once you are verified, you're called a full sharing member. What happens is, let's say that you met your first $500 out of pocket and you broke your leg and it was $10,000 to, repair your leg because of the surgery that you needed. So the co-op, what it does is it uses what's called the Medicare schedule. And there's about 100,000 codes in the Medicare schedule. And what they would do is they would use the Medicare schedule plus 50 to 70% more. So it's 100% of Medicare plus 50 to 70% more, depending on whether it's inpatient or outpatient, et cetera, so forth. And they would negotiate with the hospital in this instance in your behalf to settle the account in full so that there's no medical collection.
I see.
When the hospital accepts the payment, they get paid in 30 to 45 days. When they accept the payment, then the co-op satisfies it and you are free of any kind of medical debt that hospitals and practitioners have come after people and really caused financial ruin because of.
Yes. Now, here's an example. Like, let's say that my back went out and I'm in bed and I can't walk for 2 weeks. And then I need to go do some therapy. So I need to go to a chiropractor. I need to go to an acupuncturist to get the inflammation to go down, to heal. And maybe I need to do like an osteopathic, sacral alignment treatment. Right. So I'm giving you a scenario that's maybe going to take 3 or 4 different kind of practitioners to get me well.
Right.
So then what do we do? Because it's not a hospital that you negotiate, or do they negotiate with each one?
Well, that's a great question. Let me go back and tell you a story just real quick so that you understand how this works.
Okay.
The co-op that we're using was in an existence for almost 30 years when we came to them, and their focus was conventional medicine. So our approach was the fact that because conventional medicine only treats symptoms and alternative medicine addresses cause, that we could at least hold down the cost of healthcare for the entire co-op by bringing in alternative medicine and possibly long-term even reducing it. But, as the gap between conventional insurance would continue to rise, which is what we knew it would do in Obamacare, it would make it even more important to see the benefits of what we're doing here. So the co-op said, well, we've got 50,000 people. We have to take it to a member vote. They did, and the response was 94% approval. Okay?
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So because we're pioneering something that has never been done before, there is no coding schedule. There is actually no rhyme or reason for practitioners other than perhaps what they're able to sell their services for in any given area. So I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of discrepancy on this, but currently the practitioners are holistic doctors and nurses who are evaluating what the claims are made against the co-op. So they do know the business of, what's customary. And basically, if you look under our health program page, what you'll see is verbiage that says basically that it has to prevent long-term costs to the co-op. It has to be comparable in cost to an equivalent. There's some things that are like abuse prevention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Make sure that the co-op is not being exploited, right?
Right.
And anyways, but the point is this. How it would work is you go to your primary care. Primary care creates a diagnosis and a treatment plan. That treatment plan can have multiple modalities. It is submitted to the co-op, and if the co-op feels that it is effective, they will approve it. Now, they may modify it if they feel that the costs are too high, that there may be an equivalent treatment that would cost less. They may modify. They have a right to do that, or they can just flatly deny it if they feel that it is too cost prohibitive for the benefit of the members. And the way I like to illustrate this is if you just imagine taking your checkbook, signing all the checks and handing it to a stranger. Well, obviously nobody would ever do that, but if you did, how would you want the stranger to spend your money?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you'd want them to spend it like you do. And that's really what the responsibility of the co-op is to make sure that all of the members' interests are looked after, so that it's a great way to make sure that everyone is taken care of and provided for without it bankrupting the co-op because of abuse.
Right. And that's really an important point there, because seems like always the people that are more just out to get what they can get, and then it's at the cost of all the other members, and so then that couldn't happen because it's not good for the whole co-op.
And that's the reason why, it's not because they don't want people to get health care, but it's because of the fact that, they want to make sure that, and like, for example, when you take medical tourism, is a good example of this, because let's say in the United States that a knee surgery is, say, $25,000. Well, a person could go to a top of line medical facility in Costa Rica for $7,000. Anyways, and these are the kinds of things that I'm just saying that there's always, it's not that it's always about the dollar, but it's about making sure that the dollar makes sense the way it's spent, because it's the members' money.
So far, so cool, right? Are you guys getting as excited as I am? I want to be sure and tell you that there's a link all the way at the bottom of my products page for you to sign up with them if you're interested. Since they're like a co-op, which means, we all help each other by belonging. And if you use that link on my site, they allow me to be an affiliate, and that means I get a little commission. But you guys know I'd never recommend anything or be an affiliate for anything I don't believe in or use myself. So when I find great products or companies and they allow me to be an affiliate, then it allows me to tell you about a great thing and for you to support the show by buying through my link. Like the Amazon banner. Many use Amazon anyway, but when you use my banner to buy what you're going to buy anyway, it's at no cost to you, but the little commission they pay adds up and it helps toward the expenses for me to do this show. It's a win-win. So be sure to keep that in mind this Christmas season when you may be buying more than usual from Amazon. Okay, guys, back to the show. And does the co-op negotiate the price of the surgery, say, in America before it happens, or do they wait till you get your bill from your regular doctor? That's this enormous, ridiculous bill, and then they negotiate?
Well, that's a great question, and the answer is both.
Okay.
So in an emergency situation, there's obviously it's an after.
Right.
But in a scheduled situation, then it's a before.
Cool. That's great. Okay, and another thing to consider is a copay. Maybe you can tell us what a copay is and let us know if GreenSurance has that.
Okay. Well, that's an awesome question, and the answer is that our health program has no copay. Basically, what a copay is it's a way for insurance companies to shift as much financial responsibility off of them onto an individual as they possibly can get by with. So like you'll see many policies that will have like an 80-20 or a 70-30. If you look under Obamacare Marketplace, they have the bronze, the silver, the gold, the platinum. Yeah. Well, that's what that's all about, is about the copay. So, if you look at the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States, it's really sad to say that the statistics do not lie. They tell the truth of the matter, and the truth is, the number one cause of bankruptcy amongst insured and uninsured is unpaid medical debt.
Wow.
That's what copay has done.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Saying that their 20% that you got to cover is so much you can't even afford to live doing it.
Well, it's not just the copay, but the copay has been a big part of that.
Right.
Other things that have played into that has been the tricks that insurance plays. And this is how, when I got into the industry, did I start really seeing what really happens. And what I mean by that is this. Insurance adjusters are incentivized, and I'm going to use fingers in the air when I say incentivized. They're incentivized to not pay claims. And basically how they're incentivized to not pay claims is that a premium is based on the prior year. This is called actuarial. So you have 1 million people in a category, okay? In that 1 million people, you've paid out, $100 million in claims, and that's how you figure out per person how much they're going to pay the next year, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what they're going to say is we paid out tens of thousands of claims, and so now what they're going to say to the adjusters is, especially this is when they're company adjusters in healthcare. So what they're going to say is, we'll give you a portion of all the claims that you don't pay as a bonus. So that's called profit sharing. That's where the profit sharing comes from. So what that basically is telling you is that when you get and I'm not telling you that insurance fraud is not real. It most certainly is, but public fraud is real too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where insurance companies are profiting by the billions. That's the executives, the stockholders, and those, I guess I will just say, vested interest adjusters are when people are denied claim, because most people, statistically, most people will not fight. And they know that.
Yeah, that's true.
That's right. And because they won't fight, unless you go to the Department of Insurance and and it's all those things, and people will they get overwhelmed. It's like analysis paralysis. They get overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to do it, and it's all legal, and it just completely overwhelms them. And so then they acquiesce, and then the insurance company wins. And that's really the sad reality of what's going on in healthcare. That not only are people paying mortgage-sized premiums to health insurance companies, but now they're turning around and the insurance company is paying the practitioners less, charging the individual consumer more, and keeping more of the profit in between. And it's really very wrong.
Yeah, it's very corrupt. I can say it. Maybe you can't, but I have no problem saying it because my plan I have today, before when I was a professional golfer, I had catastrophic insurance because I just wanted to pay like $5,000 a year out of pocket if anything happened. And that was considered like a huge amount to pay out of pocket once a year. Now I'm considered to have one of the better plans, and I have to pay $6,850 out of pocket, and there's no such thing as a catastrophic plan. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. People that are paying $10,000 and up for their out of pocket before their insurance on top of their premiums.
Exactly. So that's what I mean. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So would you say that GreenSurance is a supplemental plan, or is it an absolute plan that we can replace our, main insurance like Blue Shield, Blue Cross, whatever, Kaiser, you can replace it?
I love your question. And the answer is it's both. So can it be used as a supplement? Absolutely. Sometimes we have members who come and say, well, we get employer provided health insurance. But all the things it provides are none of the things I want to do. So can it be secondary? Yes, absolutely. Can it be a standalone? The answer is yes. It can do that as well. So here's the thing that we just want to make sure that all of your listeners understand clearly. You have to know this. It's not health insurance. It's an alternative to health insurance. So we don't use the same vocabulary. And if you notice on our website, we do not use things like coverage or premiums. None of those vocabularies there. And the reason for that is, I'll just say it very simply. Can you imagine trying to do your job with 50 bosses?
I can't.
Okay. Well, neither can anybody else. And here's the reason why I'm saying that. If we were insurance, we would be regulated by every state Department of Insurance. That's 50 bosses, 50 states regulating you. That in itself drives enormous cost into the healthcare conversation. Because we're outside of insurance, because we are a private community, the things of Obamacare, for example, that we have to accept everyone, and all those things does not apply because we're not health insurance. We are a private member community who is acting as a private member community. So everyone has to health qualify in order to be approved. We can't even do big groups. We can't even bring groups in like insurance can.
Right. So
we have to health qualify.
So basically, it's kind of more a little bit of a language thing. And I guess maybe one way to rephrase that is the product, GreenSurance, of what the co-op offers strong enough to have by itself without having health insurance?
Absolutely. Well, here's the answer. Great question. You've got 50,000 people that are backing and paying into. In fact, there's a blog on our website called The Law of Large Numbers. When you understand how the law of large numbers works, is you'll understand that when you always have more people paying in than drawing from, that it stays financially solvent. This is the reason why we've used a co-op who's been in existence for 30 years to prove that point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second thing is that the co-op itself has a backup, which is called reinsurance. And so the only way that I know that the co-op could ever be bankrupted is if there was a war, okay, where everyone across the United States somehow, was injured at the same time, or if you had a plague. Because how can you have people all over the country in not one geographic location? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
If you're not in one geographic location, then everyone's not going to be having the same things at the same time. Therefore, you've got more people paying in than paying out. And that's how the co-op stays solvent, just the way insurance does.
Right. Now, would you personally feel comfortable if you were single and didn't have insurance from a workplace or anything to have only GreenSurance and you were in a horrible accident that didn't get covered or maybe got a terrible disease that's going to be,
Sure.
$1 million? Would you feel comfortable having only GreenSurance?
Well, I would. And the reason why I say that is because people think insurance is a guarantee, but I'm here to tell you that it's not the guarantee that you think it is. And this is what the bankruptcy statistics bear out.
Right. That's so true. And how difficult is it to find doctors that will take GreenSurance? And how many doctors accept it?
Right. Well, that's a great question. So here's the simple answer. The co-op that we're using to administer the health program has never, ever had a network. So what that basically means is that it gives you the absolute freedom to choose who you want to go to. Most people have about 30 years of insurance training, conditioning that says that if you don't go in network, you're going to pay a penalty, right?
Right.
They're going to punish you for this. So it's kind of almost like paralyzing to people to think that there's no network. So what our goal is in 2017, and basically it's really going to depend on the revenue that we raise from our members, but because it's a very expensive project. But what we want to do is we want to build a provider community, a provider network. And the reason is not to force people only to use the the provider network, but it simplifies this conversation because on our website, under the FAQs is, I think, item 3, it gives you 2 different options of how to start the conversation. One is if you have a provider that you're already using and you want to introduce to them the co-op as your third-party payer. And that's the vocabulary that they understand, third-party payer. Okay, that means like insurance or somebody else is paying the bill, third-party payer. Or if you want to get a new provider and you want to introduce them to the co-op. So there's 2 different scenarios. There's a small script that kind of helps you just kind of get through the conversation. And this is part of why we're going to build the network, so that once we educate the practitioners and they see the value of shifting either patient responsibility to the co-op or the responsibility from insurance is equivalent and actually better for them because they're paid more and they're paid faster. Making this an excuseless opportunity for them to leverage the value of what I call 21st century healthcare is. That's really what we're building here. We're coming out of the dark ages of the 20th century, where big pharma has run everything and big insurance corporations have run everything. And we're saying that the power of the people to make the change is here. If we don't like the way things are, then we have to change the way we spend our money. The power of the people isn't at the voting booth, it's at the cash register. And the complete green movement verifies that statement because only Costco, for example, has risen to the challenge of more demand for organics than there are farmers raising them. So they're helping the farmers because of the way people are spending their money. It really validates what the power that we all have, not individually, but collectively.
Exactly, which means that our individual power to spend the dollar the way we believe is right is more important than you think.
Right. And if you don't invest in the change you want to see, it's not going to happen.
Exactly. I can imagine, though, there's still a big fear behind a person of letting go of their insurance and moving to something like this, just out of that fear, like, oh, well, maybe the doctor I want to see will say no, or maybe there just won't be anybody and it'll be too much hassle. But when you say that's a big fear?
Absolutely. And that's why I'm saying, that's what I started to say earlier, is what I've come to understand about this conversation is that nobody wants to be first.
Yeah, right.
Everybody wants a working, proven system. And you know what? We don't have a working, proven system. We have a system that we're creating, and we're inviting people who are willing and excited to be pioneers and part of this. You know, we're all down here in the trenches. We're getting it done, but it's not because we are a multi-billion-dollar corporation. We're getting it done because the people are ready for it.
Yes,
that's how
exactly. So what if you call your doctor and you say that little script that's on your website and
Right.
you tell them about it and then they say no. Do they just say no because it's the fast answer and maybe they really would accept it, or then what do you do?
Yep. Well, that's a great question. You're full of them. I love your questions, by the way.
See,
So
when you're done with this, you can put it on the website and they'll have all the questions answered.
That's right. So the answer is the following. The co-op actually gives you two options. So if the practitioner will cooperate with the co-op as third-party payer, that's great. The information for providers on the website basically helps them to understand how they are reimbursed and how fast they are reimbursed, okay? Which basically means 30 to 45 days. There's no insurance company in existence that I know of that's reimbursing providers in that kind of a timely fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Most insurance companies drag out and cost doctors a lot of money. And I used to work in finance and had multi-million-dollar portfolios that doctors were trying to liquidate for pennies on the dollar because they were financially strapped with so much going out and millions not coming in because insurance companies basically make billions off of other people's money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the provider. So they delay payment while they're making money off of it. And the government's even worse. The government receivables on Medicare is 6 to 8 months, just so that you know.
Wow.
And then they're paying pennies. So, while everybody doesn't seem to have much sympathy for doctors because they think they're always so wealthy, yes, there are many doctors who are, but there are many doctors who are struggling. They have a lot of overhead and they have a system that's not set up to keep them in business. This is why I'm calling what we're doing is symbiotic healthcare. This is a system by which everyone benefits instead of just one entity, or one or two, like we have today, which is big pharma.
Yeah.
But we've got to make sure that our practitioners are taken care of. And so when they look on the provider page right now, we've had, I'm not for sure, we're between 100 and 200 providers who have actually done our early enrollment. And what I mean by that is right now, the practitioners who have enrolled and who love our message and have just found it, have enrolled because of the fact they see the value of what we're doing. And one of the advantages that we give them right now early on is a processing fee for all of their merchant processing of 1.6%. Anything about what it costs to process a credit card, that's very low. And we negotiated that with the largest merchant processor for medical practitioners in the United States because they saw the value of what we were doing too, recognizing that one day this is going to be a viable option, what we call the third option, health insurance, no health insurance, and GreenSurance. What we also have, and I don't know when we'll release it because it's all about raising the money, but what we also have is I've created a proprietary technology that when practitioners come on our network and they enroll in our merchant processing account, which get the 1.6%, what's also going to happen is when they treat our co-op members for scheduled treatments, they will be paid in 24 to 48 hours. That is a program we don't have released yet, but we will, within the next, I'm hoping the next year perhaps. But anyways, that's where we are. And again, this is all about creating symbiotic healthcare. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so is it the GreenSurance company that ends up having the conversation with the office if they say, no, they don't take it?
Yeah, we're here to answer any questions. In fact, I have practitioners calling me all the time, and they want to introduce this to their patient base. So what we do is we host webinars and let the practitioner invite their patients so that the patients are able to ask us all the questions. The practitioner doesn't have to do any of that. But that way they can see for themselves the value of what all of this is and about how we are each investing in the change that we want to see, like I said earlier.
Right. So if I called a doctor that I really wanted to go see and they said immediately on the phone, no, we don't take it, even after I gave them the spiel, then would GreenSurance call them and explain more to them to try to get them to accept it?
Yeah. No, we don't have the resources to do that with, but what we do is the following. So the co-op who manages the health program will reimburse our members for healthcare costs after their out-of-pocket is satisfied.
I see.
Reimbursement is 30 to 45 days too.
And would they reimburse the entire amount, or do they negotiate the amount because it's overbilled?
Yes, exactly. Well, that's a great question. And I don't have the answer other than the fact that what I do know is that they reimburse. I've never had anyone come and tell me that they shorted them. This is the reason why it's better if the co-op negotiates with the practitioner direct, so that there's not a question. But again, we go back into this whole thing, which the co-op is going to look at and make sure that the co-op is not being exploited, that its resources. So if somebody submits a bill, and I'll just give you an example. Let's say that a person needs part of their diagnosis is they need colonics. Okay. Now, I have lived in Hawaii for the last several years. So in the island of Maui, we have one of our providers we have enrolled. It's not available yet. We don't have their name, but anyways, it's their treatment protocol is right around, I'm going to say it's around 240 or 250, I don't know, somewhere in that range for 3 colonics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now on the Big Island, a different colonic facility charges $3,000 for 10 colonics because they include a chef. And you stay there and it's more like a spa treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the kinds of things why the co-op has to look at this, because again, it's not going to provide like spa type therapy for people, but it will provide the kind of health care that they need that is cost effective.
Wow, that's so cool. It's really great. And if you knew in advance that you needed to do something and it's not an emergency, do you get it kind of pre-approved by the co-op first? That's the best way, right?
So what happens is the provider, the practitioner, it has to be a state licensed practitioner. And if you look on their health program page, you'll see there's a long list of approved practitioners that can make a diagnosis. So they create a diagnosis, they create a treatment plan that is submitted to the co-op. The co-op either approves, modifies, or declines. If they approve, then basically, you have approval to get your treatments, based on your schedule.
So it has to be a therapy where a therapist has license, like homeopaths, we're not licensed. Yes. We do our certification and our testing and stuff, but would that be covered?
So here's how it works. And this is, again, because you got to realize we're doing something that has never been done before. And I'll give you an example. Naturopaths in 36 states are not licensed. Okay.
Right.
So the way the co-op works is they will only reimburse a state licensed practitioner. Now, let's talk about a clinic, because we've had this several times. So a clinic comes forth and they say, we've got all these different modalities, but not everyone in our clinic is state licensed. As long as the practitioner is state licensed who's making the diagnosis, whatever private arrangements they have for reimbursement is outside of the co-op, because the co-op is going to pay the state licensed practitioner. So in this case, let's say that a functional medicine doctor says he works with X amount of, these therapists, right, because he sees results in his practice, or maybe he has a clinic and he has those practitioners in, or whatever private arrangement there is. But the co-op is not going to pay the practitioners direct if they're not state licensed. But that's why if they work with a state licensed practitioner, they can be reimbursed based on that licensed practitioner will be the one reimbursed. The practitioner who helped me was not state licensed.
Right. So I was actually just going to ask you that.
Right. Yeah. I know the value of not just a state license doesn't mean really anything in many cases. However, right now, because we do not have our own co-op, we are using a third-party co-op. We don't have final say on this. At some point in the future, as we continue to build our member base and we eventually have enough members that we can create a self-regulated entity, then that will be something we'll take a look at. But that's a whole nother conversation.
So at this point, like for me, I'm a homeopath. They wouldn't pay me because I don't even have the ability to be state licensed. It's not allowed. So they wouldn't pay me. But could a patient come to me and then submit the claim and try to get paid back? Or does the service have to always be from a state license?
That's a great question. You know what? I don't know that I've ever been asked that. Here's what I would just say. If you worked with a chiropractor, because obviously we know chiropractors are very much about alternatives. If you worked with a chiropractor, that would probably be the one that I would just say would be the guaranteed reimbursement. Because the chiro is the one who's going to get reimbursed. Whether they do that or not, that's a great question. And I would suspect the answer would be no, just because the fact that right now this is the criteria that they approve to do this on. So, like I say, we don't have full regulation on what is approved and what is not. Right now, what we're doing, and you just have to understand this, what our community, what our message is about holding up a light in a very dark place. And that is this montage of conventional medicine and all the complications that, most people feel completely overwhelmed. And we're holding up a light that's like a magnet, and we're saying, you want natural medicine for your primary care. If that makes sense to you, then we're the people you need to be with, because we are a like-minded community of people who are self-funding our own health care, because we don't want to be forced into one-dimensional medicine.
Right.
And as we continue to attract, and we believe millions of people eventually will hear this message and will respond to it, because statistics say there's 158 million people who are self-funding natural medicine, spending collectively over $100 billion.
Right, that's for sure.
There's a very big audience here that don't even know we exist. I mean, every single day, we've got, I can't even tell you how many phone calls and emails that we're getting. But anyway, so it is growing, But
yeah, for sure.
We don't advertise, we haven't had any kind of, large, media campaigns. It's just been really by word of mouth and people who are fed up with what insurance has done to them. And they've gone to the internet and they've searched for an alternative. And that's how they're finding us.
Yeah. And does it cover like dental and vision?
Great question. And the answer is the following. It does not include it, but it does include it. I know that sounds a bit contradictory, so let me give you a couple scenarios. Let's say a person fell down the stairs and broke their teeth out. Okay, so then the co-op, because it was part of the injury, the co-op could take care of the cost. But if you just need to get a cavity filled, that's not what it's included for. Now, because I said earlier, we have 3 co-ops that are working together. We have a secondary co-op who provides a lot of the gaps in things like prescription discount, dental discount, vision discount. It's providing some of the gaps that the health program itself does not provide. Now, we do have another member of our organization who is an insurance broker, and we send over anyone who wants a dental or a vision or prescription insurance. If they want those kinds of plans, she can help them with that.
That's good. Do the rates go up every year, or have they been fairly stable?
Great question. I don't have a long-term relationship with the organization to base this on. What I can tell you is the following, that we've been with them for 2 years and we haven't seen an increase yet. The way increases are determined is based on claims that are paid out, and those are appropriated per member. So really, when you look at our costs, what you'll see is, I call it the wholesale cost of healthcare. The administration cost for the health program is 12% of the money that's collected. So 88% of it is paid out in claims against the co-op. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What the co-op has informed me of is that so far they've seen no savings in bringing in alternative medicine. But my original conversation with them was it was not going to be a short-term fix. But long-term, it would definitely be something the co-op would see, because of the fact that our members aren't going to be having catastrophic diseases. And that's really where the real cost of healthcare comes in.
Yeah.
That's stuff that bankrupts people, not the minor stuff.
Right.
One thing that I would like to encourage all the listeners to do is to go to, when you go to mygreensurance.com or .org, look under the Home tab. And when the Home tab drops down, you look for what's called the Master Plan. And that is it's a flip book that will basically kind of summarize where we've been and where we're going. And when you understand the vision of where we're going, I think your listeners are going to get really excited, because you're going to see the vision that we have and how groundbreaking what we're doing really is. It isn't just about what we're doing right now, but it's about what we're going to be doing. And it's really about putting health into the healthcare conversation, because what we've got to get away from is disease management. And that's what Big Pharma wants everyone to have. They want to make sure you're on their payroll. Yep. And that's how they do it.
Yep. And so there's like a flat monthly fee, or is it a one-time? How is the payment for GreenSurance?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we are a member organization and we're crowdfunding our community expenses. And so each member contributes as a donation. It's $20 a month that you pay one time a year, which is $249. We have a PayPal option that you can even delay that for 6 months with no interest. Then the co-op itself, who administers the health program, charges a one-time evaluation fee to look at your medical questionnaire, the health questionnaire that everyone submits. That is $160, and that renews at $75 annually. That's kind of like a reevaluation.
So
now,
you could consider that a kind of a fee that's an annual fee that's $160, you said, the first year, and $75 after that?
Right. And that's, and then GreenSurance is always, the $249. Now, that's what we call cost category 1. Okay. So kind of like, think about it like when you go to Costco or Sam's Club, any member club, you pay an entrance fee.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you purchase when you get inside is your business. So once you get inside is where you pay what we call cost category 2, and that's monthly, like an insurance premium. You pay monthly into the co-op, and that's how you get the benefits of the health program.
Right.
That's cost category 2. Cost category 3 is how you get the benefit, which means that you've satisfied the out-of-pocket first, like an insurance deductible.
Right, that $500.
Yep.
And let's talk about the fee in cost category 2. Is it standard? Like I know there's single family couple, so is that standard? So every single person the same, or does it vary depending on your health?
Great question. And the answer is yes, it does vary. The things that are the variables are obesity. If you're really overweight, they won't accept. If you're mildly obese, when I'm saying obese, I mean like off the chart, like their charts. And so anyways, I don't know if they're using BMI. I certainly hope they are using BMI on this decision, because there are people that are muscular and they're dense. So, weight isn't always the variable, but they look at smoking as an example. That's another thing that raises the cost. So yeah, health history and habits go into whether they are whether it's going to cost more. So when you look at the cost page on our website, what you'll see is, let's just say, for example, an individual, a single person, for example, would see a variable from anywhere from $249 a month up to $329. Okay. And the variable is weight and habits. So if you are overweight, you're going to pay more. And if you're smoking, you're going to pay more. And both of those things have to stop.
But there is an upper end of $349.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere between that, depending on your habits and your weight.
Well, it's either one or the other. So it's either going to they're either going to charge you the low end or the high end.
I see.
Yeah. So it's not like variable inside of that, but they're going to charge you one or the other based on those two things. And I will just say this: if you're overweight, you have to lose weight. They do assign you a health coach, and they have to see that you're making progress. If you smoke, you have to stop smoking. Because again, these are behavioral modifications that the co-op says, we're not going to continue to take that risk.
Right. And do they require a physical or blood work that you submit?
Yeah, they don't. It's pretty amazing that they don't require it. But I will tell you this much. People say, well, how do you prevent fraud? Well, the way they prevent fraud is the following. Let's say someone says that I weigh 180 pounds, I'm 6 foot tall, and they go to the hospital 3 months later and they weigh 240 pounds.
Right.
You know what I mean? The co-op knows that they were lied to, and then they'll just flat deny everything.
Right.
So that's how they prevent it. So they don't really, it's really about integrity right now. They've really graciously accepted people on their word, and hopefully it will continue to stay that way. And I guess it will change when, there's been too many instances where people have, ruined that. But right now that's how it's done. Okay.
And maybe a question, because I'm from California, but I think more and more people are not married and still can be considered a couple. Can you tell me, can you get the couple plan price if you have lived together for so many years?
Yep. Absolutely.
And that
couple has nothing, and I'll tell you that this is a great question too. Couple has nothing to do with you don't have to produce a marriage certificate, but you also have to realize that you can be married and not sign on as a couple. So, and we have those situations too. Someone will say, well, my husband, he only wants to do conventional medicine. I want to do alternative. Well, you can sign on as a single. It doesn't mean you are, but that means that's the health program you enrolled with.
Right. So you can have totally different names and live together and get the couple price.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. That's cool. And then is the deductible of $500 for each person still in the couple plan?
That's right. When you do the health questionnaire, it'll ask you who else is on here. So you'll add, another adult, and then you'll add the children, those kinds of things. So everyone that's in, and I just want to clarify this because sometimes people do ask this question. The GreenSurance enrollment fee is not per person. It's per enrollment of each family. So it is, if you have 3 people in your health program that you're enrolling, it's $249 for everyone. If it's 1 person, it's still $249. If it's 10 people, it's still $249.
Yeah, I see. So it's just that one time per family, per single, per couple.
Right. Well, the GreenSurance fee is actually renewable each year because this is how we continue to build. That's how we crowdfund what we're doing here.
Right.
So we need our members each year to continue to contribute toward our co-op so that we can stay in operation because we have no other means of supporting what we're doing here.
Right. So if you just had to leave 3 short kind of reasons why GreenSurance is a great thing for people to consider, what would you say they are?
I would say if you are ready for change, then we are the community that has your back. We understand what people are facing in the insurance conversation. Our mission statement is to take it's not covered by my health insurance out of our healthcare conversation. And when we do that, we know that we're going to save lives and we're going to empower people. And I would say the third thing is that Einstein said it best when he said insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Exactly. That's so true.
If you're ready for something new and innovative, then join us.
And I want to also tell the listeners that I have on my website under the products page for right now, the affiliate link for your GreenSurance. So if they're interested in joining and they join through that link, it gives me a little commission to help support the show and the work that I'm doing.
That's right.
So
absolutely.
they do that for me with the Amazon link, and I don't very often put up very many things, as they know. I think that's about all I do that's an affiliate link, but there's sometimes when I really believe in a product or a company that I really want to share that, and it helps them kind of donate for the work that I do on the show and get something that's good for them too.
Absolutely. We want all of your listeners to make sure and use that link for you because we definitely believe that our ambassadors, which is what you are, here you're helping us get the word out, is part of what has made our community where we are right now. We're about 16 months old, and it's been people like you who believe in what we're doing that have continued to promote and get the word out to their community and their sphere of influence, and it's making a difference.
That's so great. And how many people are in the co-op now?
That's a great question. And, I would say in the way of households, as far as members is concerned, there's two numbers that we're between 200 to 300 in health program enrollments. And I would say that collectively represents somewhere around 1,500 people would be my guess. Somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 people collectively, because obviously we've got some families and so we've got some singles. So where that puts us, I'm not for sure. But anyways, maybe one day we'll have a census and we'll find out exactly how many people we're helping.
Well, it's certainly a necessary thing that has to happen. Like you said, if you're up for supporting change, this is the direction at least to be starting. And I'm sure you guys are going to grow. With every year that goes, you can add and adapt the direction that you're going on to support all that needs to happen in this industry because so much needs to change. So, Kari, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm going to put on the show notes of this episode all the links to your site. But if there's anything in addition that you want people to know of, then you send it to me, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever. You send it to me and they'll be in the show notes. If there's a phone number and stuff or a email, you just let me know and everything for them will be in the notes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. And you have a great day, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Great job. Wow, you guys, I hope you learned as much as I did today. I just want to tell you how excited I am about this insurance co-op idea. I know it can be scary to stop your Kaiser, Blue Cross, or Blue Shield, or whoever you're with, but I think once you do, you'll never look back. I'm going to do it early in the new year because I'm so happy just to think about supporting a company that I believe in and a company that has the same view on healthcare as I do. And what do I have to lose? I never use my insurance and I pay everything out of my pocket anyway. If I don't like it, and if you don't like it, you can always stop and go back to your old one. So I hope you guys enjoyed learning about this fantastic option. Now, you must know what time it is, right? It's time to say goodbye. Vidal has spoken. Remember, you heal with a plant-powered diet, homeopathy, and detoxing, of course. Peace. Be healthy. Be free. Live life.